48 hours are crucial. Gary Jacobs of the Times has said, and please make sure we're smashing the like button, mods, members, community. Make sure, I shouldn't have to keep saying that, you know what I mean? Arsenal have moved closer to agreeing a deal with Newcastle for Bruno Guimaraes, worth in the region of 80 million, including add-ons. Fair enough, man. Slight overpayment. As I always say, with Bruno Guimaraes, if life was fair and the market weren't mad, to be honest, I think 50, 60 million, more heavy yard on the 60 million is fair. With what we see with the market and we're seeing what's going on at Newcastle and all that kind of crap, my absolute hard line would have been 75 to 85 million, as we've discussed. So I think it's fair. I know people are going to go, oh, he's 28, turning 29. Blood, that should give him a sense of urgency. He's going to bang for us, man. I don't want to keep saying the same things. At this point, we all know what Bruno can and can't do. We all know why we want him. Get through the door, and it's our first major signing with the greatest of respect to our second choice keeper, Millier, and the permanent signing of Nkapie. Sammy Motbell has spoken. We're going to circle back, but there is growing expectation that Bruno Guimaraes will join Arsenal this summer. Multiple sources have told BBC Sport. Arsenal are aiming to agree a deal with Newcastle in the coming days, which could reach 80 million. Hand of Arsenal said, according to well-placed sources, Arsenal will present a package that will in total be in the region of 80 million for Bruno G. Personal terms allegedly agreed. Eddie Howe was told weeks ago the club were considering the sale of their talisman. Since then, Eddie Howe's obviously departed. This is said Arsenal are closing in on the deal for Guimaraes and are expected to pay north of 70 million for him. AFC Camden has said Arsenal hope to conclude a deal for Guimaraes in the coming days so the player can join up with the squad in Dublin next week. Arsenal have reached an agreement in principle with Newcastle on a 90 million euros fee to sign Bruno Guimaraes. Bonuses and agent commissions remain to be negotiated, but if all goes to plan in the next few days, Guimaraes will be a new Arsenal player. As Newcastle captain, Guimaraes has been reluctant to publicly agitate for a transfer like Alexander Isak did last summer, but he has on several occasions, including in the past few days, reaffirmed his desire to pursue a move to Arsenal. And I mean, if I was a Newcastle fan, I'd be a bit cheesed off because last season wasn't what we wanted. We've lost, a man that's done great work in Eddie Howe for the last 5 years. Gordon, Isak, Tonali are missing someone else out, people. And now your club captain is set to leave. It's a reset. It's a new rebuild like that. Nothing lasts forever, innit? What Newcastle achieved with that core group of players and Eddie Howe, it's in the past now. Whoever the new manager is and their new players, that's what they're going to do. And to be fair, there's also been a lot of changes. Forget the owners. Even though I'm happy Newcastle fans don't have Mike Ashley. There's been a lot of changes at boardroom level. But, if Newcastle have the same approach, I know Newcastle at that stage, if you're a fan, you want to hold on to your Guimaraes, your Gordons, your Isaacs, your this ones, your that one, get into the Champions League, maybe, go beyond just winning the League Cup, actually long-term build towards, simply put, disrupting the monopoly that the top six generally have. But I think they'll be all right because we were linked with Guimaraes when he was in Brazil and Lyon and a number of clubs. They took a chance. Isak, they actually played big money, but the way the ratings we have for Isak wasn't always universally shared. They took a chance. Anthony Gordon, no one was waxing lyrical about him at Everton. He's got to move to Barcelona. You see where I'm going. So they'll be all right. And away from their key players, they need to bring a lot of players in and they need to move people on. Arsenal reached 90 million euros agreement with Newcastle to sign Guimaraes, says this report. So both clubs have reached a 90 million euros agreement in principle for the transfer of the Brazil international. According to a report this Friday from L'Equipe, the 28-year-old already agreed personal terms with Mikel Arteta as Gunners over a 5-year deal. The Premier League champions were initially put off by Newcastle's 100 million euros valuation of the player, but Arsenal and the Magpies eventually reached a compromise. And to be fair, away from the obvious reasons to sign for Arsenal, there's bare Brazilian people at Arsenal. There's, in the London clubs, they're all friends in it. You're going to be able to link João Pedro and what's the one at Brentford and all of these guys. So it just makes sense. If I'm honest, it must be the equivalent to how it's not the same, but I can sympathize with Newcastle fans, man, because it must have been like when we saw Cesc and Thierry Henry and all of these guys leave, especially Thierry Henry, because you could see the project changing. And Cesc was like one of the last to cut out, if I'm honest. Arsenal's 90 million bid submitted on Friday has made Newcastle blink. Details still to be ironed out regarding add-ons and agent fees, but Guimaraes looks well on his way to join the Emirates Stadium. L'Equipe reports that Lyon are set to receive 8 million euros from the Brazilian's transfer, given they have negotiated a 20% sell-on clause after agreeing to part ways with Guimaraes 6 years ago in a 50 million euro deal. So all parties, if this happens, are happy in it. Well, quote unquote. I know they want to keep Guimaraes and all of that, but at the end of the day, for a 28 turning 29-year-old, you've got 90 million euros, 80 odd million quid, decent profit on the 50 million euros that you initially spent. you've made history, etc., etc. And it's just for Newcastle, it's just how they reinvest. Ryan Taylor, I believe, of the Standard has said Arsenal are working to close a deal for Gomares in the coming days. In a transfer expected to reach at least 80 million, potentially up to 85 with add-ons. There's now a growing expectation that a deal will be struck. Gomares had initially been scheduled to return to Newcastle on Friday, but now the subsequent delay, which has materialized to facilitate the transfer, will provide the two clubs a window to resolve the matters. And obviously, technically, you're contracted to Newcastle. I don't know where they're going for pre-season, but you'd imagine Gomares is due to be with them. So yeah, there's a growing sense of expectation. Gomares will join Arsenal. He's made it clear he wants to join the Premier League champions. And apparently we're increasingly confident of signing the 28-year-old who has 31 goals in 195 appearances for Newcastle. And I know he's 28, so there is a degree of what you see is what you get. But one thing that intrigues me, obviously, beyond the obvious reasons as to like what he means for Declan Rice, you know, what he gives our team, all that kind of stuff. And I know they're different age brains, but I did think when we signed Declan Rice, who was obviously amazing at West Ham, to a degree, what you saw is what you got. And he's not only taking that West Ham, like what he was doing traditionally at West Ham and taking it to Arsenal and giving us exactly that, but he's gone better in that regards. And obviously you're seeing free kicks and goals and all different aspects. So I wonder what other side of Bruno Gomares we could potentially see at the Emirates. But again, as much as I'm quite confident, and you could probably see on my Instagram channel, I'm doing a bit too much and jumping the gun. We do need to wait until he's holding his shirt. Arsenal will need to improve the 70 million bid they made this month if they are to sign Gomares, who's due to return to Newcastle's training in the coming days. Sources insist a new proposal is yet to be submitted, while Newcastle are adamant that formal club-to-club talks over Gomares' protracted switch to North London have not taken place. So somebody's capping and someone's lying, because 1 minute for every bids agreed, bids have been made, bids haven't been made, club-to-club talks, no club-to-club talks, intermediaries. We all know there's three sides to every story, and we'll never know. It's literally whatever is reported from Newcastle's end, Arsenal's end, and what is the truth. We'll never know in it. But nevertheless, as it actually ironically says here, Arsenal aiming to agree a deal in the coming days, which could reach 80 million. The belief that a deal is within reach is not connected to Eddie Howe's decision to step down from his role as Newcastle head coach. I can't lie. Why do they keep reminding us that the Morgan Rogers team didn't bang? We were given the opportunity to match Chelsea's offer. We didn't do that. Newcastle have lost a number of key players. Man, Newcastle will be back. So, yeah. And this is being said by Lee Ryder of the Chronicle. I think he primarily covers Newcastle news. Gomares will not fly out with the Newcastle squad for their pre-season training camp to La Manga today and is instead scheduled to join the team on Sunday as part of his post-World Cup fitness program. One source close to the deal at Arsenal's end is suggesting he may not return to Newcastle. That fear has been put to the Gomares representatives, who have maintained the silence throughout the process when asked by Chronicle Live. Let's see what Talksport is saying here. Apparently, Gomares asked his Newcastle to delay pre-season travel plans to finalize such move, people. Allegedly, he has asked them to delay his travel to La Manga for a pre-season training camp as he closes in on this move. Once again, Newcastle insists Gomares was always due to join up with the party on Sunday, but sources close to the player have told Talksport his original travel plans have moved. So is that him saying, you know what, I'm not really on it? You might as well go back to Newcastle, go pack your bags, man. There's no suggestion Gomares is refusing to train or travel, but a small delay could allow a transfer to be finalized. Newcastle insists Gomares' return was always a fluid situation off the back of the World Cup, and that his first training day in La Manga was Monday, which remains the case as it stands. The revelation comes days after news emerged. Arsenal are confident they could strike a deal for him. Arsenal believe they have a verbal agreement north of 75 million in place to sign the 28-year-old. You don't know me on this platform. Gentleman's agreement, verbal agreement. I wish life was fair, but until it's in cold-hearted writing on a pen, black or blue ink on white paper, A4 paper, I's have been dotted, T's have been crossed, legal contracts, anything can happen in this thing, people. Even Hull City, they were about to, you see the striker that's just signed for Real Madrid, apparently they were about to sign him. Real Madrid have got involved in the last 24 hours and like Newcastle have to do something else, innit? Again, we know Newcastle have let several players leave, and apparently they're under no pressure to sell Gomares. He's got 2 years left. So, I mean, he's achieved stuff. He's 28, turning 29. He's got 2 years left on his deal. This was the best time you could have sold him. Now, Newcastle would disagree. I reckon they would rather him stayed at the club and maybe leave next summer for 60-odd million to help them kind of tie over. A few years ago, was he not, pardon me, linked heavily with joining Manchester City for 100 million euros? So, to be fair, you could debunk my own logic. So, yeah, people, that's that. Getting bored of this now. Anyone want to talk about Vinicius Jr? But before that, Newcastle, our boss, won a domestic trophy way more recently than Spurs has. A bit harsh. Bruno G Prime, proven, experience, quality, worth the money. Why is no one trying to sign Sarr from Crystal Palace? Sell Jesus and sign Sarr. Well, sell Jesus, yeah, but we don't need Sarr, man. Dermot, big up yourself. People, no sympathy for Newcastle from me. They were happy to become another cheat code club, so fuck them. Us and Barca were the ones that, I can't say that word, playoff Arsenal at that time. Do you think Newcastle in trouble, though? Young squad, new manager could be a long season. It's definitely a long season. It's definitely a long season, but there's light at the end of the tunnel. Like, towards the end of last season, they could have been in a relegation race. And now it's a rebuild. We don't know what they're going to look like tactically. We don't know the 11. Obviously, Newcastle's transfer stuff is heavily focused on the stars. You know, the Isaacs, the Tenalis, the Gomares of this world. But there's also a couple of players that probably need to be moved on. Like, big up Dan Burn. You probably need to move away from that. Jacob Murphy probably need to move on from that. James Trafford, it probably pissed off Newcastle not to get him because Nick Pope and Ramsdale is the kind of chuckle brothers. So, yeah, you're right in a sense, man. You're right in a sense. But there was a degree we were selling to anyone. So, yeah, they are going to be in trouble. They are going to have a young squad. They do probably need some experienced heads. I would be more intrigued with the manager because it must be tough for Newcastle. You're seeing your captains leaving, but the major talking point should have really been yesterday, Eddie Howe's cutting. And again, to us football fans, this comes out of the wilderness, innit? Like yesterday, oh my God, Eddie Howe's leaving. If we're finding out about this now, he must have communicated. Of course, people can do things on a random, but he must have communicated his feelings. So I wonder how Eddie Howe feels, man. I wonder if Eddie Howe, is it a thing where Gomares leaving is the final straw? You're making a very tough job even more impossible. Does he feel like his 10 years run, like I've had a good 5 years? Maybe they need fresh ideas, etc. Is he frustrated with the transfer market? I don't know so much about everything now, but in the last 2 years, they keep getting robbed for their targets, innit? Like they tried to get Hugo Ekitike, didn't bang. The last summer, I can't remember all of them, but they were probably the team that was keeping publications alive, man. We'll have the best midfield next season, especially if City lose Rodri. Apparently, we are after a mystery Real Madrid player. Hit the likes, people. Numbers look off social. Get onto them. Appreciate you for that. I'm buzzing for Gomares. PSR and SCR stink. Let clubs invest what they want as long as they prove they're sustainable and don't use dirty money. It's to cripple the likes of Aston Villa and Newcastle. Don't get it twisted. Newcastle haven't necessarily always done things the right way in terms of buying the right players, putting average players on big wages like Ramsey comes to mind, but it's to cripple them. Newcastle rushed to the top with poor foundations. This is how it ends. You have to build like Brighton, Bournemouth the right way and not skip steps. This is what happens with weak foundations. There's insane news about Vini. Real Madrid want him to sign or they're selling. We're going through all of that, man. Tranquillo. R.I.P. Baresi, man. And on the topic of Newcastle, once again, R.I.P. Kevin Keegan. Bruno G and Decker's going to, bro, them two, crazy. You have Rice and Zubi. Why Bruno G? You don't need him. Arsenal fans, we need him. We've ran Zubi into the ground. We've run Rice into the ground. We need them. It's all fun and games in the beginning of the season when it's one game a week. Oh, my God, the one on the bench is going to leave. When you're playing 3 games a week, 3 games in 10 days, apologies, you're going to need them. You're going to need them. Apparently, Marca has learned that Real Madrid have already proposed their final contract offer to Vinicius Jr. Their position is clear. If Vini accepts, he'll renew his contract. If he doesn't, Real Madrid will open the door to a sale this summer. So all the options are with Vini. In my heart of hearts, and I don't know him, I think he wants to stay at Real Madrid. But who knows, people? What do you lot make of that? Real Madrid have now decided it's time to end the Vini renewal saga. After months of stalled negotiations, the club has told Vini, take the offer that's on the table or leave it. There'll be no new round of negotiations and no new offers. If he accepts the offer, he renews. If he rejects the offer, the club will open the door to a sale now in order to stop him leaving for free in 2027. Strong arming. So it all depends, man, how much of a poker player is Vini. And we've got to remember what's being reported. Obviously, that's enticing to Arsenal fans because you're hoping they put one offer, that's it. Vini thinks that's unacceptable. We're able to swoop, but we don't know. Maybe he accepts it. Maybe he doesn't. Maybe they're calling Vini's bluff and they're actually prepared to offer another offer. Maybe Vini's calling their bluff. You never know, man. There's a lot of gamesmanship where football's concerned. If Vini says he wants to leave, Real Madrid will not put obstacles. And you know what? I mean, naturally, because of his contract. But if I was Vini and they said that to me, you'd kind of get the sense you're not important. So that could help us. Real Madrid say that everything depends on Vini. If he wants to stay, he'll stay. But if he wants to leave, the club will not block him and help them get some finances in. Real Madrid have informed Vini that the club's latest contract offer is the final offer. There'll be no new offer. He either accepts it or the club will consider selling him now. We've gone over that one. So yeah, it all depends on Mr. Vini. Real Madrid do not want Vini's situation to drag on longer. They want a decision now. Arsenal are waiting, according to reports in Spain. Vini could be put on the bench if he refuses the renewal offer, refuses to be sold. Strong arming. I mean, I hear that, and they probably will. But when this, assuming he stays there and his contract's running out, you're going to use Vinicius Jr., bro. Like, come on. Real Madrid consider Vini to be a major player. They recognize that he deserves a wage increase and have presented an offer. However, the club will not break the wage structure for any player until they're worth it. That's one thing. Vini's one thing. Alex Kirkland, apparently via Charles Watts' YouTube, said, I was talking to my ESPN colleague who's very well connected at Real Madrid. He was saying to me that he's been told that Arsenal were also interested in another unnamed Real Madrid player, that Vini Jr. was not the only one. And they need to get rid of players because they won't be able to register them, and they haven't struggled moving people on. But you would imagine, especially when Rodri goes, even though Tchouaméni signed a new deal, Tchouaméni's going to get linked with moves. Camavinga's going to get linked with moves. Arda Güler will be linked with a move. Endrick will be linked with a move. Vinicius Jr. will be linked with a move. Had Rodrigo been fit, all this stuff might have been around him, etc., etc. I hope it's Endrick. I wouldn't mind Diaz, or it could be one of their defenders. I think, we had Party at the club. I think you should leave that defender who plays for Real Madrid alone, personally. Could it be Rodrigo? Would you not take a chance on Rodrigo? I know he's not fully fit, and initially you have to wait to assess his fitness, but that could be a discount. They might say to you, know what? We let him go, innit? We'd rather keep Vini, we'd rather keep Mbappe and do all the other things. Apparently, Jose, for what it's worth, really likes Rodrigo. The player is seen as different to the other forwards, with more creativity in central areas and versatility. The Athletic is saying the player is Arsenal's top priority. We'll give more details about the numbers of a possible deal at the end of the week. We're at the end of the week, bro. We're them there. Arsenal are in a very good position if Real Madrid fails to renew Vini's contract. Situation still open. So we're just staying on side. Like, really and truly, it's Real Madrid versus Vini right now, and then we're trying to intercept. We haven't enticed him at the moment. We haven't tempted him to say, regardless of your new contract, I don't want to stay. He'll return to training next week as well. Completely on topic, but off topic. Ethan Nwaneri still being linked with moves away. Been aggressively linked with Borussia Dortmund today as well, who tried to get him last summer. Nwaneri is the type of profile that interests AC Milan. There's been contact. Milan is making inquiries to understand the situation. I can add that there are other clubs interested. It's cutthroat, Leipzig, and then 2 Premier League clubs, Fulham and Everton. Arsenal are open to a possible departure. A permanent deal would be better, but without losing control over the player's rights. He's definitely not an untouchable player, quite the opposite. Once again, when we get back to Vini. At Arsenal, they still believe they have plenty of options to sign him. At Madrid, they say everything depends on Vini. If Vini wants to leave, they won't put any obstacles in his way. They've told him to take it or leave it. They will not make a higher offer to the player. So the games seems to be running its course. There needs to be some level of a resolution. Good news for us. Reiss Nelson could leave. West Ham are interested in signing Reiss Nelson. The player prefers to stay in London. Go and get that done. Arsenal have again been linked with Ferran Torres, who scored the World Cup winning goal and is a World Cup winner. Arsenal have entered the race for Ferran Torres and have intensified their interest. Another one whose contract's running down, been linked with PSG as well. And you know what? You or Jarabal, I might not necessarily think they're the guys, but they're the kind of guys I can see working in Mikel Arteta's system. Arsenal deciding on what to do with Ethan Nwaneri, whether to keep him, give him a loan to aid his development, or sell him, which they request at least 35 million euros. A key criteria to a permanent transfer could be Arsenal retaining a buyback clause, with half of Europe looking at him, people. The cost of the deal to bring Vini to Arsenal would be one of the most expensive, if not the most expensive in British football history in terms of a fee and wages. Internally, Arsenal believe they have the financial means to complete the transfer and are also confident the player will join. But it's relying on them saying, yo, the Real Madrid thing is, it's either he needs to say this Real Madrid journey's over, or Real Madrid have had enough and they F him off, really. Should we see what our gaffer Mikel Arteta has had to say as well? Mikel Arteta believes it's crucial to take Arsenal to a different level this transfer window. I want to see specifically what he said. We are still being linked with Julian Alvarez as well. A lot is happening. We all know about the context of this transfer window. From ownership to the board, the sporting director and myself, we know that we want to take this club to a different level that's going to require a better squad and better individuals. We have identified where we have opportunities to grow and to improve and to evolve our game and what is going to be needed to achieve that. Hopefully very soon we can start to put things in a very concrete way. What do we make of that, folks? So Bruno's the first domino. Bruno, the real Bruno, soon to be a Premier League winner. None of this gassing up assist records and all that bullshit. Bruno and Decker's pivot, Bruno Gomares and Declan Rice. Miles Lewis-Skelly and Declan Rice. Bruno and Declan Rice. Zubimendino and Bruno. Zubimendino and Miles Lewis-Skelly. Zubimendino and Rice. I'm not going to lie, Zubi, you're still my guy. But your thing looks, and obviously Rice and Zubi, but your one looks the weakest at this moment in time. And it's probably recency bias because right now, Zubi, you're still my guy. But Lewis-Skelly and Rice is the first thing. Bruno comes in. Oh, it could be lit. And this will probably be I've been on YouTube 10 years in September. This is the first year we've actually won the Prem. And this will be the first year I can say I'm happy. I'm happy with my central midfielders. So I'm happy with my defense. Obviously, we need to bring someone in, Saliba and whatnot, but happy with my defensive options, happy with my midfield, assuming this happens. End of the day, this is why attackers are paid big bucks in it. They're the difference makers. We need that X factor and all that jazz. So yeah, man, just saying.